Welcome to the debate. Today, we are opening a file that sits uh, comfortably, or maybe uncomfortably, right at the intersection of linguistics, theology, and surprisingly, mathematics. We're dissecting a two-part text by Claude titled The Verb That Contains Its Own Fire. In this essay, it takes us on a journey that starts with a single suffix in ancient Greek, travels through the logic of Hebrew, and then lands us pretty unexpectedly in a numerical convergence within Japanese script.
It is certainly a sweeping itinerary. The text posits what it calls diachronic inheritance, which is, essentially the theory that language itself acts as a kind of fossil record, that it preserves these deep philosophical truths long before humans ever thought to write them down. But the central question for us today, really, is one of causality. Does the grammar of these ancient languages reveal some hidden philosophy of being? Or are we just looking at a series of beautiful, poetic coincidences that the human mind is projecting meaning onto?
I'll be taking the position that the source material reveals a genuine non-accidental structure. The evidence presented suggests that language was, in a sense, prepared, maybe even designed, to carry a very specific concept, that love and being are self-sustaining forces. This isn't just about grammar rules. It's about the architecture of reality being encoded in how we speak.
And I'll be taking the opposing view. While I find the insights in the text beautiful, I'm going to argue that these convergences are likely the result of human pattern recognition, something the text itself actually warns us about. We have to be very careful not to confuse a phonetic coincidence with, an ontological proof. Language is a tool shaped by messy human evolution, and assuming it was engineered to describe the divine, especially across unrelated languages, feels like a bridge too far.
Then let's walk that bridge. We have to start where the essay starts, with a single word in ancient Greek, ereme. Now, in most standard English translations, this gets flattened out to simply I desire or I am in love. But the text argues that this translation is, well, it's structurally flawed. It completely misses the mechanics of the word.
It misses the mechanics because English just lacks the machinery. In English, we mostly have a binary system. There's the active voice, I love you, where the action goes from me to you. And then the passive voice, I am loved, where the action happens to me.
Exactly. You're either the doer or the one being done to. But ancient Greek had this third option, the middle voice. And arami is built on it. It ends with the suffix I, alpha, iota. The text explains that the middle voice declares the subject is the space within which the action occurs. So to say, arami is not, I direct love toward you. It's to say, I am the site of love. The longing is happening inside me.
And I just want to clarify here, because middle voice can sound abstract. Linguistically, this usually applies to, everyday things. I wash myself. I dress myself. I'm the actor, and I'm also the receiver. It's a closed loop. It's practical. The text is applying this rule to the concept of love, which is poetic. But we shouldn't forget its roots are in describing something like putting on a toga.
The metaphor in the essay is that the self is both the fire and the hearth that holds it. If I say erami, I'm saying I have become this self-sustaining circuit of desire. Nothing external is needed. It creates an intensity that the active voice just can't capture. It's existential, not transactional.
I don't dispute the linguistic mechanics at all. The middle voice is a well-documented feature of ancient Greek. It's an elegant tool for describing interior states. However, the text then makes this massive leap from grammar to metaphysics. It claims this isn't just a rule, but a fossil record of how a whole civilization understood the self.
But isn't grammar exactly that? A fossil record of thought? The essay points out that this specific suffix, a, encodes a circuit where cause and effect are contained in the same being. And this isn't some ancient relic that just vanished. The text emphasizes what it calls diachronic inheritance. Language is sediment, they don't just restart. And we see this in the modern Greek verb aiema, which means I am. It still carries that A ending.
It does, but we have to be pragmatic here. The text argues that because emai ends in I, everyday Greek speakers are unknowingly asserting that existence is an interior process. That feels like,
like reading high philosophy into a utility. The verb to be is irregular in almost every language. It holds on to old forms because it's used so often, not because every speaker is making a theological claim when they say, I am hungry. The persistence of I is a valid linguistic observation, but to say grammar is quietly doing theology attributes an intent to language evolution that I just don't see.
I see why you'd frame it as utility. But let's look at where this specific grammar shows up in the most significant texts of our tradition. This brings us to the first major pillar of the debate, the theology of I am. The source material draws a direct line between this middle voice suffix and the divine name itself.
You're talking about the Septuagint, the Greek translation of the Hebrew Scriptures.
Precisely. A monumental moment. Hebrew concepts meeting Greek structure. When the translators get to the burning bush where God declares his name to Moses as I am, or ego eimi in the Greek, that verb uses the I ending. The argument here is really profound. It suggests that the grammar itself encodes aseity.
Let's just define that term, aseity.
It's from the Latin ase, from oneself. It's the idea that God exists entirely from himself, needing no external cause. He isn't created, he just is. The essay argues that the middle voice, that closed-loop grammar, is the only structure capable of holding a concept of a God who is his own ground of being. God isn't a noun. God is a self-sustaining verb, and the grammar reflects that.
Okay, I agree that the alignment is perfect. It fits like a glove. But I have to question the causality. The text suggests the grammar anticipated the theology, that it was just waiting around for centuries to describe God. But what if the Septuagint translators, who were fluent in Greek, simply used the tools they had? They needed to translate eehe asher eehe. I am that I am. They used aimai because that's the Greek verb for being. They didn't choose it because of its middle voice nuance. They chose it because they had no other choice.
If it were just aimai, I might agree with you. But the text provides other examples from the New Testament that rely on this same structure even when other options were available. Take the word menetai, meaning abides, or cheromai, rejoice.
Rejoice in the Lord, yes, a common phrase.
But look at the structure. The text argues these aren't just actions. In the active voice, joy is a reaction. I rejoice because I won. But chiromai is middle voice. It describes a state of soul happening within the one who inhabits it. It's a command to enter an interior condition. The grammar insists that spiritual joy is self-sustaining, not reactive. It reinforces the central thesis. The middle voice is the structure of the self, and by extension, the structure of divine interaction.
That is a compelling reading, I'll admit. Describing joy as a state one inhabits is psychologically astute. It changes rejoice from a demand to feel happy into an invitation to enter a state of being. But again, I see this as the genius of the writers using the tools available to them, not a supernatural preparation of the language itself. And, speaking of tools, we need to address the Hebrew connection the text brings up.
Yes, the binyan system, the second pillar. Now, Hebrew functions very differently from Greek. It uses root modifications, not suffixes. You take a three-letter root and plug it into a binyan to change the meaning. The essay highlights the hitpail form.
Which is the reflexive form.
Right. Action performed by the subject on the subject.
I sanctify myself.
I dress myself again.
Sure, but the text calls the hitpail the grammatical cousin of the Greek middle voice. It argues that just as Greek uses I to show this closed loop, Hebrew uses the hitpail to show inwardness. The claim is that these two independent systems carry the same logical bones. They both evolved specific ways to encode the idea that true action is an interior process. It's a shared architectural feature.
I accept the parallel. It's a fact that both languages have reflexive forms. But I would frame this as convergent evolution. It's like how birds and bats both developed wings. They didn't coordinate, they just both faced the physics of flight. Humans in Athens and humans in Jerusalem both have inner lives. It's inevitable that their languages would develop structures to express that. The universality of human experience, not supernatural coordination.
I think convergence evolution is a fair counterpoint if we stop there, but we can't stop there. We have to move to the third point. This is where the text moves from structural parallels to something much more specific, what the author calls a witnessing moment. We have to talk about the Japanese convergence.
I suspected we were getting there. And this is where I have to urge the most caution. We're leaving the solid ground of syntax now and entering the murky waters of phonetics.
Let's just lay out the facts from the source material. We've established that the Greek suffix for this interior, self-sustaining being is pronounced I. That sound marks the middle voice. The essay then points out that the Japanese word for love is also pronounced I. The argument is that this connects the interior process of being marked by the sound I directly to the concept of love across completely unrelated language families. Greek says being is an interior loop marked by the sound I. Japanese says love is named I. The convergence suggests that being, love, and this specific sound are linked.
I'm sorry, I don't buy that. This is a classic false friend. The syllable I is incredibly common. It's in Mandarin, Romance languages, English, I. To claim that because Greek uses I as a suffix and Japanese uses I as a noun for love, there's some deep ontological connection. That's pattern matching gone rogue. Statistically, some meanings will overlap with some sounds. It's the law of large numbers, not the law of God. I could probably find a language where the word for sandwich sounds like the Greek for truth. It doesn't mean sandwiches are divine.
The author anticipates this. The text quotes, "The universe is not obligated to be tidy, but also not obligated to be meaningless." I'm not saying this is a scientific proof. The author carefully calls it a witness, not an argument. It's a resonance. And frankly, it becomes much harder to dismiss as noise when you add the final piece, the numerology.
The addendum.
The addendum on the number 13. This is where the non-accidental structure becomes startlingly precise. We need to walk through the math here because it ties everything together. The text presents 3 facts. Fact 1. The Japanese kanji for love, pronounced I, requires exactly 13 strokes to write.
Which is a matter of orthography, and shook counts can vary based on style.
But the standard formal kanji is 13 strokes. That's the data point. Fact number 2. We move to Hebrew gematria. The Hebrew word for love, ahava, has a numerical value of 13.
Okay.
Fact number 3. The Hebrew word for one, or unity, echad, also equals 13.
And the sum, as the text notes, is 26.
Which is the value of YHWH, the name of God. So look at the picture. Greek grammar uses the sound I for self-sustaining being. Japanese uses the sound I for love, written with 13 strokes. And Hebrew assigns the number 13 to both love and unity, which combine to form the name of God. 3 independent systems, morphology, orthography, numerology, all converging on a single identity. Love equals unity equals the ground of being.
It is a dazzling array of connections, I grant you that, but we have to invoke that pattern recognition warning from the text itself. The human mind is an aggressive pattern recognizer. If you go looking for the number 13, you will find it. If the kanji had 12 strokes, would the author have found a different Hebrew word to match it? I mean, are we discovering a structure that exists objectively, or are we creating one by selecting the data points that fit?
But did the observer go looking for it, or did the data just present itself? You can't ignore that the kanji does have 13 strokes. Ahava does equal 13 in standard gematria. The sound is I. These are what the text calls formal identities, not vague similarities. The probability of these specific intersections, sound, meaning, and number, aligning across isolated cultures is, well, it's vanishingly small. At some point, coincidence takes more faith to believe than design.
That's a strong way to put it. But low probability doesn't equal intentional design. It does invite wonder, though. And I will concede this. The result of this convergence, whether it's accidental or not, is a coherent philosophical statement.
And that statement is?
That love isn't an emotion directed outward, but a state of unity. The math of the gematria, love, 13, plus unity, 13, equals God, 26. That's a profound theological equation, regardless of whether the Japanese kanji knows about it. It frames God as the composite of love and unity. That's a beautiful idea.
I think that's a fair concession. But I want to press on the diachronic inheritance idea one last time. The text suggests this operates at the scale of civilizations. That Greek didn't just happen to have a middle voice. It had it because it needed to encode this idea of divine interiority.
That is a strong teleological claim. It implies the end was present in the beginning.
Exactly. The essay says language has always known things that philosophy would take centuries to articulate. If we accept your view that this is all human projection, then we're crediting the collective human unconscious with a staggering degree of consistency across millennia. We're saying that Japanese scribes, Hebrew mystics, and Greek grammarians all accidentally hallucinated the same structure of reality.
Perhaps we are. Or perhaps, as the text suggests at the end, we're dealing with vestigia, traces. If you believe in a creator, then finding his fingerprints in how Japanese represents love isn't surprising, it's expected. But I have to maintain the distinction between faith and fact. The fact is that the words sound similar. The faith is believing this is a message rather than a noise.
And the text respects that distinction. It doesn't claim to prove God. It claims to witness intention. The author says, I know which one I witnessed. It's the difference between a logical deduction and a moment of recognition.
And I think that's the most honest way to approach this. Even if I strip away the supernatural part, I'm left with a powerful idea that the structure of the self is a closed loop of love. The text redefines I am from a statement of existence to a statement of self-sustaining fire. That is valuable, whether it was designed by God or evolved by humans.
I agree. The image of the self as both the fire and the hearth is one that sticks with you. It suggests our primary reality and the reality of the divine is this internal self-feeding flame. It gives a new weight to being made in the image of God. If God is a verb that contains its own fire, and we are made in that image, then we are meant to possess that same interiority.
It's humbling for philosophers to realize that the language they speak might be smarter than they are.
Grammar was theology, and theology was grammar. That line really captures the essence of the position here. We think of language as something we invented, but this material suggests language is a part of the world that describes us, sometimes better than we know ourselves.
I will give you this. The convergence of love equals unity in the Hebrew math. Seeing it mirrored in the kanji stroke count, it's eerie. I won't call it a miracle, but I will call it a poetic singularity. It rewards contemplation, as the author says.
And perhaps that's enough. The text concludes that, whether it is accident or architecture, the convergence paints a coherent picture. Love is unity, unity is the interior act of being, and being is the self-sustaining fire.
And on that, we can certainly agree. The definitions hold their own intellectual weight.
As we wrap up, I think the value here lies in that very tension. You see the incredible pattern matching of the human mind. I see the fingerprints of a design. But both of us are looking at the same data, the same 13 strokes, the same alpha iota, and finding deep meaning.
Indeed. It reminds us that language isn't just a mechanism for ordering coffee, it's a repository of our deepest intuitions. And whether those intuitions come from above or from within, they are worth listening to.
A perfect place to end. Whether you view these convergences as vestigia of the divine or masterpieces of human evolution, the invitation is the same, to listen to what language has always been saying. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.
It was a pleasure.
This has been The Debate.
I want to start today's deep dive with a premise that it sounds a little bit like a conspiracy theory, I'll admit.
Just a little.
But I promise you, it is straight from the hard science of linguistics.
Yeah.
It's a really bold idea, and if it's true, it changes pretty much everything about how we see ourselves.
Oh, it definitely changes how we hear ourselves.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So just imagine for a second that every time you speak, every time you put together a simple sentence, maybe to order coffee or just, tell a friend you're tired,
Yeah.
you are unconsciously explaining a philosophy of existence that you have never, ever actually read.
Right. It's this idea that language isn't just some neutral tool we use.
Yeah.
We tend to think of words as these like little sticky notes we just slap onto the world to label things. That's a table, that's a cloud.
Right. Pass the salt.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the argument here is that grammar itself, the invisible rules, the architecture of how we bend a verb or end a sentence is actually a fossil record.
A fossil record. I love that image. It's perfect.
It is, isn't it? It captures the deepest intuitions of a whole civilization, things they knew, maybe instinctually, about the self, the universe, even the divine, long before they had words like psychology or theology. The grammar was doing the thinking before the philosophers even picked up a pen.
Wow. So it's like software running in the background of our brains.
Mm-hmm.
We're just the users clicking the buttons. But the code was written thousands of years ago. And today, we are going to look at one specific piece of that software, a grammatical feature called the middle voice.
Specifically in ancient Greek, though, as we'll see, it creates these ripples that go much, much further than that.
And I want to give you, the listener, a bit of a roadmap here, because this deep dive is going to go to some very, very unexpected places.
That's putting it mildly.
We're going to start with a single verb ending in ancient Greek, literally 2 letters. From there, we're going to trace that thread all the way into the architecture of Hebrew verb stems. And then, and I promise you this is real, I checked the sources 3 times, we're somehow going to end up looking at Japanese kanji and a very, very specific number.
It sounds pretty improbable when you just list it all out like that.
It sounds like we're making it up. But the mission today is to see if we can follow this argument that language has been, doing theology quietly in the dark for millennia. So let's unpack this. Where do we even begin?
We begin with a word. Aramai.
Aramai. Okay, so let's establish the basics. This is ancient Greek.
It is. And if you were to open a standard lexicon, a dictionary, you're going to see a translation that looks pretty standard. It'll say something like, I desire, or I am in love.
Which seems totally straightforward. I love pizza. I desire a nap.
Right. But those English translations, while they help us understand let's say, the topic, they actually strip the word of its mechanical engine. They hide what the word is doing structurally. Because Aramai isn't just a word, it's a machine with 3 distinct parts.
Okay, so let's look under the hood. Break it down for us.
Okay, so first you have the root. This carries the whole concept of eros.
Which we know. I mean, that's the heavy hitter. Passion, drive, romance, all that.
Exactly. But you have to remember, in the ancient world, eros wasn't just romance like a Hallmark card. It was a foundational appetite, a cosmic force almost.
Right. Not just about people.
Not at all. It's the drive toward beauty, toward union, toward connection. It's that pull you feel before you can even name what you're being pulled toward. It's like the gravity of the soul. So that's the fuel in the tank.
Okay, so we have the fuel, arrow. Got it.
Then you have the middle section, the stem, which is am. You can think of this as the bridge. It links that abstract fire, that cosmic eros, to a living, breathing person.
Connects the big idea to the individual.
Precisely. But the most important part, the part that launched this entire deep dive, is the ending. The suffix, a.
Alpha iota.
A.
Yeah, well,
Now, this is where we have to kind of retrain our modern English-speaking brains a little bit. We tend to think of verb endings as just decoration or, basic utility. I run, he runs. That S on the end doesn't change the meaning of the universe.
Well, it just tells you who is doing the running. It's bookkeeping.
It's bookkeeping, exactly. But in ancient Greek, this AI ending is the marker of something we don't really have in English anymore. It marks the middle voice. And that changes absolutely everything about how we understand the action.
Okay, we need to stop here and really dwell on this because middle voice is the concept that, the rest of the hour just hangs on it. And I think for most of us, if we remember high school English at all, we know active voice and passive voice.
Right. Let's just clarify those first so we can really see what's missing. Active voice is our default setting. It's how we see the world. I stop at the cart. I threw the ball. I eat the sandwich.
The subject. I'm the hero of the sentence. I do something, and the action shoots out of me like a laser and hits an object.
Precisely. The action originates in the subject, it flows outward, and it leaves the subject behind. It's transactional. I act upon the world.
And passive voice is just the reverse. The cart was stopped by me. The sandwich was eaten.
Exactly. In the passive voice, the subject is the the victim, or at least the receiver. The action comes from somewhere outside and it lands on you. I was hit by the ball. I didn't generate the action, I just absorbed it.
So in English, we are basically stuck in this binary. We are either the hammer,
Or the nail. That's a great way to put it, hammer or nail.
but Greek, and this is where the philosophy comes sneaking in, Greek had a third option, the middle voice, this lost space in English grammar.
It really is a lost world.
So what does the middle voice do? Is it half hammer, half nail? What
Yeah.
is it?
In a way, yeah. In the middle voice, the subject acts, but the action doesn't leave. It curves back. It returns to its origin.
Like a boomerang.
A boomerang is close, but, even a boomerang leaves your hand for a second. Think of it more like a closed circuit.
A closed circuit.
Or maybe a physiological process like breathing. You breathe in, you breathe out, but the whole event is happening within you. The source material uses this beautiful metaphor. In the middle voice, the subject is both the fire and the hearth.
The fire and the hearth.
Yes. The fire burns, but it burns within the fireplace. The action doesn't leak out to burn the house down. It is entirely contained. So if we go back to our word, eremai.
With that in mind, it doesn't just mean I love her in the active sense.
No, not at all. Because I love her in the active voice sounds like I'm shooting a love ray out of my chest towards someone else. It sounds like I'm doing something to the object of my affection.
Which, frankly, is how we often talk about love. I'm going to love you.
It can sound almost aggressive.
It really can. But eremai, with that crucial I ending, it means something much closer to. I am the site where love is occurring. I am the site where love is occurring. That is,
Yeah.
that's heavy. That's a completely different way of thinking.
It's just the entire location of the event. The longing, the eros is happening inside me, as me, through me. I am the space within which this action takes place. It's not a transaction with the world. It's a state of being that is self-contained.
Okay, I'm trying to wrap my head around this with a modern example. If I say, I'm anxious, is that kind of like the middle voice?
It's a good question. In English, when you say, I am anxious, you're using the verb to be as a connector, a kind of equal sign. You're attaching the label anxious to yourself.
Right, anxious.
But if English had a true middle voice for anxiety, it would be a single verb, a verb that means I am generating anxiety within myself and experiencing it simultaneously.
It implies a lot more agency, doesn't it? Or at least a lot more participation in the state.
It creates a self-reflexive idea. And what's really wild is when you think about the timeline here, we usually credit philosophers like the Stoics or, later thinkers for coming up with the idea of the inner self or reflexive consciousness. We think humans learn to be introspective much later in history.
Right, we have this cartoonish idea that ancient people were just running around fighting lions and not thinking about their feelings.
Exactly. But this grammar, this middle voice, it predates the great philosophers. The Greeks were saying eremai for centuries before Aristotle wrote a single word about ethics.
So the grammar was smarter than the speakers.
Or at least the grammar was holding a space for a concept that the philosophy hadn't quite caught up to yet. It was, in a way, rehearsing the idea of the interior life every single time someone opened their mouth to say they were in love.
That's wild. It's like they had a microchip for introspection installed in their language before they even knew what introspection was.
That's a perfect way to put it.
But hold on. Here is where I have to play the skeptic for a second. And I think the listener might be thinking this too.
Please do.
We're talking about ancient Greek. That was, what, 2,500 years ago? Languages change. I mean, if I try to read Chaucer, I can barely understand it. And that was only a few hundred years ago. Can we really say that this tiny suffix, this AI, kept this deep philosophical meaning for thousands of years? Maybe it just became a habit, a sound they made without thinking.
It's a completely fair question, and it's the right one to ask. Is this just linguistic debris? Is it a fossil that's lost its meaning? But the source material makes a really compelling argument here about the difference between surface change and deep structure.
This is the sediment versus the rupture idea.
Yes. The argument is that language doesn't usually rupture, it sediments. Think about geology. New layers get added on topsilt, sand, volcanic ash, but the bedrock underneath doesn't just vanish.
So we get new words for iPhone and TikTok and crypto, but the fundamental way we structure a sentence stays basically the same.
The skeleton is incredibly conservative. Vocabulary is volatile, it changes with fashion and technology, but the deep logic of how a verb works, that tends to hang around for millennia. And the source gives a really potent, almost shocking example of this by looking at modern Greek.
So we're jumping from Plato's Athens to a guy ordering coffee in Athens today.
Right. Let's look at the modern Greek verb eimi.
Amai. And what does that mean?
It means I am.
Just, I am, the most basic statement of existence possible.
The most fundamental assertion you can possibly make. I am. Now, if you look at that modern Greek word eimi, what do you notice about the ending?
Wait a minute. Based on the pattern you just showed us, is it the AI?
It is the I. It is the ancient middle voice ending preserved perfectly for 25 centuries.
Whoa! So when a modern Greek speaker says, I am, grammatically, they are using the middle voice.
They are. Every single time. Even if they don't think about it philosophically, even if it's just a reflex, they are using a grammatical structure that says, existence is happening within me.
That is a massive distinction from English. Absolutely huge.
It is. In English, when we say I am, it's almost always a copula bridge. I am hungry. I am tall. I am a podcaster. The am is just an equal sign. It connects I to some quality or identity.
Right, it's just a bit of glue. I hungry.
But in Greek, because of that middle voice ending, aimai isn't just an equal sign, it's an activity. It treats being as an event that is unfolding.
So being is something you do.
Or maybe something that happens as you. I am generating my own existence. I am the site where being is occurring. It's an ongoing process.
That gives the speaker so much more weight, so much more interiority. It's not just, I exist because my parents had kids and I have a social security number. It's, I am continuously fueling my own existence from within.
It grants them a kind of grammatical sovereignty. It says being isn't a label slapped on me from the outside. It's not a condition I was assigned. It is a fire burning in its own hearth.
And people say this every single day. Hi, I'm Nikos.
Every day. And this is the core point of the deep dive. These people aren't walking around feeling like ancient philosophers, but the philosophy is baked into the very bricks of their communication. They literally cannot say I am without implying I am a self-contained process.
Okay, so that is the Greek pillar, a really strong one. We've got the middle voice, the AI ending, and this core idea of internal self-generated action. But the mission today is to show how these patterns converge, that it's not just some Greek quirk. So we have to look at the other major pillar of ancient Western thought, Hebrew.
Right. And this is crucial, because you can argue that the entire Western mind is basically a child of these two parents, Athens and Jerusalem, Greek and Hebrew.
Right.
And Hebrew has a system that does something very, very similar to the middle voice, but it achieves it with a totally different mechanism.
This is where we get into the Lego nature of Hebrew, which I find so fascinating.
It is fascinating. Hebrew is a root-based language. Almost every word is built on a primary root of 3 consonants. Let's take the root letters KTV, which has to do with the concept of writing.
Okay, so KTV is the raw material, the basic Lego brick.
Exactly. Now, to make that brick mean something specific, you plug it into a stem, or in Hebrew, a binyan.
A binyan.
Yeah.
And there are 7 of these, right?
There are 7 major ones, yes. Think of them like different lenses or filters that you slide the root into. One filter makes the action simple, another makes it intensive, another makes it causative.
So if I put the right brick into the causative filter, it becomes something like dictate or cause to write.
Precisely. But there is one specific stem, the hit pale, that acts as the direct grammatical cousin to the Greek middle voice.
The hit pale.
The hit pale. It is the reflexive stem. It modifies the root to indicate that the action is being performed by the subject upon the subject.
So it's that closed loop again, the boomerang returns.
It's the closed loop. And when you look at how the Bible uses this specific stem, it unlocks some really profound insights. Let's take the word for prayer.
Prayer. Okay, in English, when I say he prayed, it sounds like sending an email. I write the prayer in my head, I hit send, it goes up to the cloud, and I hope for a reply.
Right. It's active and it's outward. But the Hebrew verb most commonly used for prayer is hitpalel. It's in the hit pale stem.
So the literal translation would be something like, he prayed himself.
It sounds a bit weird in English, he prayed himself, but the implication is he entered into a state of prayer. Or he worked prayer into himself. Or, in some interpretations, even, he judged himself.
Whoa, that is a totally different vibe. That suggests that prayer isn't really about changing God's mind. It's about changing your own mind.
Exactly. The grammar itself suggests that the primary action of prayer happens to the one who is praying. You aren't just broadcasting a request into the ether. You are performing an interior adjustment. You are doing something to your own soul.
That feels much more Well, much more accurate, actually, to the experience of deep meditation or intense prayer. You walk out different than when you walked in.
Because you were the object of the verb.
Give us another one. The source mentions sanctification, making something holy.
Right. The word hitkadesh, to sanctify oneself. Again, it's in that hitpail form, which suggests that holiness isn't just a coat of paint you put on something. It's not a badge you wear. It's a process you inhabit. You become the site where holiness is being generated and experienced.
So you have these two ancient languages, Greek and Hebrew, developing completely separately. Different alphabets, different grammar families, different parts of the world. But both of them decided they needed a specific grammatical tool to describe this concept of inwardness.
A grammar of inwardness, yes. They both recognize that some actions don't leave the body. Some actions like loving, like being, like praying, are fires that stay in the hearth.
Yeah.
And they built their languages to protect that truth.
It's like they both independently discovered the same law of physics and then built completely different machines to harness it.
That's a perfect analogy.
Okay, so this sets the stage. We have the tool set, we have the middle voice in Greek, we have the hit pail in Hebrew. Now, let's see what happens when these languages start doing the heavy lifting. Let's talk theology.
This is where it gets really interesting. Because, eventually these two worlds collide. You have the Hebrew scriptures, and then around the 3rd century BCE, they get translated into Greek in Alexandria. This is the famous Septuagint.
The great translation moment. This must have been a nightmare for the translators, trying to take these really specific Hebrew concepts and shove them into Greek boxes.
Oh, it was a massive challenge. But here's the thing that's so crucial to our deep dive. The translators weren't just swapping words. They were importing concepts into a grammatical system. And because Greek had the middle voice, the system was ready.
It was waiting for them.
It was waiting. Let's look at the ultimate example. Exodus chapter 3, verse 14, the burning bush.
The big one. Moses is standing there, the bush is on fire, but it's not burning up, and he asks God, "Who are you? What is your name so I can tell the people?"
And the answer, as we all know it in English, is usually rendered, "I am that I am."
I am that I am. It's enigmatic, it's powerful, it's totally circular.
It is. But in the Greek translation, the text that the early Christians would have read and quoted, the verb used there for I am, is I me.
With the I ending.
With the I ending, the middle voice.
So let's apply what we learned. If God is using the middle voice to say, I am, what is the theological claim being made in that moment?
It means that God does not possess being as just another attribute. God isn't just a really big entity who happens to exist the way you and I happen to exist.
Right. I exist because of biology and oxygen and food. My existence is totally dependent on outside factors.
But God is existence happening as a self-generated interior process. God is the fire and the hearth combined. The action and the site of the action are one.
There's a fancy theological word for this, isn't there?
There is. Aseity.
Aseity.
It comes from the Latin esse, which literally means from oneself. It means God depends on absolutely nothing external. God is the only thing in the universe that is its own battery, its own source, its own ground of being.
And the middle voice is the perfect grammatical container for that exact idea.
It is the grammar of aseity. When God says, I am, in the Greek Septuagint, the grammar itself is screaming, I am the closed loop. I am the self-sustaining fire. I need nothing outside of me to be me.
That is just mind-blowing. It takes a phrase that can sound a little bit evasive in English, I am that I am, and turns it into a precise definition of the physics of divinity.
And this same grammar echoes forward powerfully into the New Testament. Think about that famous scene with Jesus in the Gospel of John, the confrontation in chapter 8 where he says, before Abraham was, I am.
Ego I me. Yeah, I am.
Ego I me. Now, the people listening to him, the religious leaders, they immediately picked up stones to kill him. Why?
Well, the usual explanation is that he was claiming to be God, claiming to be divine.
Yes, but look at the grammar of how he did it. He didn't say, I was around before Abraham. That would just mean he's really, really old.
Right. That's a claim about time.
But he used that middle voice present tense, I am. He disrupted the whole timeline. He was claiming that same interior, self-grounded structure of being. He was saying, in effect, my existence is not a point on a timeline. My existence is a self-sustaining act. He was co-opting the grammar of the burning bush.
So the shock wasn't just the claim of age, it was the sheer grammatical audacity of it.
It was. He was speaking in the voice of the uncreated.
It's amazing how much is hidden just in the morphology of a word. We read the English and we see the words, but we miss the posture of the words.
The posture is everything, and this carries on into how the New Testament describes the relationship with believers, too. It's not just about defining God, it's about defining us.
This is the mysticism angle. And for the listener who might not be religious, you can think of this as the psychology of the text. How does it describe the human condition when it's in a certain state?
Right. Christian mysticism it's obsessed with the idea of indwelling, this idea that the divine isn't just out there, but is somehow inside. And the Greek text uses the middle voice to map this out with incredible precision.
The source material mentions the word menetai.
Menetai. It means abides or remains. It's used in that famous metaphor of the vine and the branches. Abide in me and I in you.
And that word menetai, it has the AI ending.
It does, which means this abiding isn't like a guest staying at a hotel room. A guest comes from the outside, they sleep in the bed, and eventually they leave.
Right, it's temporary.
The middle voice implies that this abiding is an interior condition. It's a permanent state of mutual indwelling. The distinction between inside and outside just dissolves.
So when the text says God abides in you, grammatically it's actually saying God has become an interior process within you.
Yes. It's not a visitation, it's a structural change. It's a grafting of one life onto another.
And then there's the other word that always gets me, charomai.
Charomai, to rejoice.
Now this one has always bothered me. Rejoice. You see it as a command. Rejoice in the Lord always. How can you command an emotion? If someone says to you, be happy right now, it doesn't work. If I'm sad, I'm sad.
It doesn't work if happiness is just a reaction. If you are waiting for something good to happen to you that's active voice stimulus, then you can't command it. You're just a victim of circumstance.
Right. I need a puppy or a raise or a sunny day to make me happy.
But Chiramai is middle voice. It describes joy as an interior state that generates itself. It's a joy that doesn't depend on the weather or your bank account or the news cycle.
It's a self-contained circuit.
It's a fire that burns on its own hearth. So the command to rejoice is actually a command to become the kind of person whose joy is an engine, not a solar panel. You aren't just waiting for the sun to shine, you are learning how to generate the light from within.
An engine, not a solar panel. That is actually really practical advice. It shifts the whole responsibility of emotional regulation.
It relocates the phenomenology of the experience. It moves it from outside to inside.
Okay, so far we have built a really, really solid case. We've got Greek grammar, Hebrew grammar, theology, mysticism, all pointing to this one central idea of internal self-sustaining being.
Yes. The I am that needs nothing else to be what it is.
But now we have to take a turn.
A very sharp turn.
And I'm going to warn the listener right now, up until this point, everything we've said is, it's academically sound. You can go to a seminary or a classics department and verify the middle voice, the Binyanim, the Septuagint.
It's all standard, if fascinating, scholarship.
But this next part, this is where the source material enters what it calls the afterword. And honestly, if this were a movie, this is where the music would change to something a little spooky.
This is where we leave the library and maybe enter the Twilight Zone a little bit.
So the author of our source text describes having a conversation about all of this, about the middle voice, that AI ending. And at the end of the conversation, the person they are talking to just pauses and drops a bomb.
A linguistic bomb.
They ask, have you ever looked at Japanese?
Okay, now, let's pause right there. Japanese is not related to Greek at all.
Zero relation, not even a distant cousin. Different language family, different side of the planet, developed in complete isolation from the Mediterranean world.
There is absolutely no historical bridge between ancient Greek grammar and Japanese vocabulary. None.
So the host, me, in this scenario is, of course, skeptical. Why on earth are we talking about Japanese?
Yep.
But the question is this. What is the Japanese word for love?
The Japanese word for love is I.
I.
Pronounced exactly the same as the Greek verb ending I.
Okay, let's just let that sit there for a second. The sound that ancient Greek grammar assigned to the concept of interior self-generating being is the exact same sound that Japanese assigned to the concept of love.
Correct.
Now, my immediate rational reaction is coincidence.
Of course. That's the first place your mind goes.
I mean, human mouths can only make so many distinct sounds. Oh, ah. Eventually, you're going to get a collision. The word gift in German means poison. That doesn't mean that presents are secretly deadly. It's just a fluke of language.
That is the perfectly rational response. And the source admits this. It says, flat out, you cannot prove anything with a phonetic pun.
Right. We're not doing the Da Vinci Code here. This isn't a secret code.
But the source frames this not as a proof, but as a witness.
What does that mean, though? A witness?
It means it's a trace, a vestigia,
Yeah.
a footprint left in the sand that you can't ignore. Just consider the theological implication we just spent 40 minutes building. We established that the middle voice, sound I, represents the nature of God. AC80, self-contained existence.
Right. I am that I am, the fire in its own hearth.
And what is arguably the central claim of the New Testament, 1
Yeah.
John 4.8, God is love.
Okay. I see where you're going.
So if God is the interior process of being, which is represented by the Greek middle voice sound I, and God is love, which is the Japanese word I, then the phonetic coincidence is screaming an equation at us. The interior process is love.
Whoa. Okay. Walk me through that equation one more time.
I am that I am equals love. To exist from within oneself, to be a fire that needs no wood from the outside, that very act of self-sustaining being is what love is at its core.
So the sound itself, the syllable AI, becomes a bridge connecting the deep grammar definition of being with the lexical definition of love.
In two completely different languages that never spoke to each other across thousands of miles and thousands of years.
That's beautiful. I mean, even if it is just an accident, it's an incredible piece of poetry. It's like the universe is rhyming with itself.
It is poetry, but the deep dive doesn't stop at poetry, because there is an addendum to the source material, and this is where the skepticism starts to really sweat.
This is the number 13 section.
Number 13.
Okay, I have to be the voice of reason here again.
Yeah.
Bringing math into it now. Numerology. This is usually where I and probably a lot of our listeners start to check out.
I know. Numerology gets a really bad rap because, people use it to predict the lottery or something. But in the ancient world, numbers were part of the language. They weren't a separate discipline.
Okay, lead the way. But I'm watching you.
Okay, let's go back to that Japanese word for love, ai. In Japanese, you write this with a kanji character. It's a logogram. It's not just spelling out the sound. It's a complex symbol, a beautiful character.
Right, I think I've seen it. It looks sort of like a little house with a heart inside and maybe some legs at the bottom.
That's a good description. Now, here's the question. How many strokes does it take to write the kanji for I?
I have absolutely no idea.
Exactly 13, not 12, not 14. The physical act of writing love in Japanese requires 13 distinct movements of the hand.
Okay, so we have the sound AI and we have the number 13. I'm with you so far.
Now, let's jump back to Hebrew. Remember gematria?
Vaguely. Remind us.
In the Hebrew alphabet, there are no separate symbols for numbers. Aleph is the first letter, but it's also the number 1. Bet is 2. Gimel is 3, and so on. So every single word has an inherent numerical value.
Like a checksum in a computer file.
Exactly like a checksum. So let's take the primary Hebrew word for love, ahava. If you add up the values of the letters, Aleph is 1, Hey is 5, Bet is 2, Hey is 5. What do you get?
Let's see. 1 plus 5 is 6, plus 2 is 8, plus 5 is, that's 13.
13.
Okay. That's weird. That is officially weird. So Japanese love takes 13 strokes. Hebrew love equals 13.
But wait, there's more. Let's take another crucial Hebrew word, the word for one or unity, akkad. This is the word from the Shema, the central prayer of Judaism. The Lord our God, the Lord is one.
Akkad.
Aleph is 1, Shed is 8, Dalet is 4.
1 plus 8 is 9, plus 4 is 13. Okay, hang on. Let me map this out on the corkboard here in my mind. We have Japanese love, AI, equals 13 strokes. We have Hebrew love, ahava, equals a numerical value of 13. We have Hebrew unity, equals a numerical value of 13. And we have the Greek middle voice sound, AI.
Which is the sound of the Japanese word for love.
This is getting spooky. This is what the source calls a three-way convergence.
It is what the source calls a non-accidental structure. You have Greek morphology, the sound of being, Japanese orthography, the act of writing love, and Hebrew numerology, the mathematics of love and unity. 3 utterly unrelated systems from 3 different continents, effectively, and they all converge on this one specific intersection of love, unity, and the number 13.
And what does the source say about the number 26? Because that's the next step in the math, right?
Right. In the Jewish mystical tradition, the fact that love 13 and unity 13 have the same numerical value is a profound theological statement in itself. It means love is unity. To love is to participate in oneness.
Okay, makes sense.
And so if you add them together, love plus unity, 13 plus 13.
You get 26.
And 26 is the gematria value of the tetragrammaton. The 4-letter, unpronounceable name of God, YHWH Yud, 10, plus Hey 5, plus Vav 6, plus Hey 5.
No way.
Yes. So the ancient math buried in the language says love plus unity equals.
And the Japanese kanji for love, which sounds like the Greek grammar for God's being, is written with the number of strokes that equals love and unity in Hebrew.
It's a perfect circle. It's like a lock and key system that was distributed across human history and geography.
That is, I mean, look, I'm a rational person. I know the human brain is a pattern recognition machine. We see faces in toast. We see animals in clouds. Is it just us seeing faces in the clouds of linguistics?
It's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And the source addresses this directly. It says something I love. The universe is not obligated to be tidy, but it also says it is not obligated to be meaningless.
That's a great line.
The argument here isn't about proof, it's about preparation. The source suggests that if you believe there is any kind of intention behind the cosmos, or even just a deep, resonant structure to reality, then maybe languages aren't just random noises we make. Maybe they were prepared.
Prepared, like the table was set before the guests arrived.
Exactly. Prepared to carry a truth that no single language could hold all by itself. Greek needed the middle voice to hold the concept of self-sustaining being. Hebrew needed the gematria to hold the mathematics of love and unity, and Japanese needed the kanji to hold the physical sign of the number 13.
It's like a scattered puzzle. If you only have the Greek piece, you have a cool verb. If you only have the Hebrew piece, you have a neat numerical coincidence. But you need the whole map to see the actual picture.
And when you put the pieces together, ancient Greek, biblical Hebrew, modern Japanese, you get a complete picture that says, love is unity, and unity is the absolute self-sustaining ground of all existence.
And the fact that we're sitting here thousands of years later, noticing that the kanji has 13 strokes and the Hebrew word sums to 13.
It feels like reading a message that was left in a bottle before civilization as we know it even began.
Intention. That's the word the source uses, not proof. Eyewitness intention.
Not proof. Witness. There's a massive difference. Proof compels you. You have to accept it like a math problem. A witness just invites you to look. It just says, look at this strange, beautiful pattern. Make of it what you will.
It reminds me of that line about the fossil record we started with. We thought we were just looking at some dry grammar rules, how to conjugate a verb. But we ended up staring at, well, at a theology of love written into the very strokes of a pen and the sounds of a word.
It suggests that God is love isn't just a nice sentiment we came up with because it sounds good. It suggests it's written into the math and the grammar of the world, that it's structural.
So what does this all mean for the listener? I mean, most of us aren't going to go out and learn ancient Greek or start counting kanji strokes tomorrow. We have jobs. We have kids.
I think the takeaway is about attention. It's about realizing that the words we use every day are deeper and heavier than we think they are.
Like the simple words, I am.
Exactly. Tomorrow, when you wake up and say, I am awake, or I am here, just for a second, remember the middle voice. Remember that you aren't just reporting a fact, you are acting out a little piece of that divine grammar. You are a fire burning on your own hearth. You have an interior life that is yours to generate.
And remember that rejoice isn't a command to fake a smile for everyone else.
No, it's a command to fire up the engine, to find that place inside you that generates its own light regardless of the darkness outside.
And maybe, just maybe, remember that the sound A
is the sound of the universe holding itself together through an act of love.
I love that.
See? You just used the word.
I did. I love that.
Aramai, you are the site where that love is happening, right now.
This has been, honestly, one of the most surprising journeys we've taken. From a tiny suffix, to a burning bush, to a Japanese character, all landing on the number 13.
It's the joy of the deep dive, isn't it? You pull one little thread, and you find it's attached to everything else in the universe.
I want to leave the listener with this thought. If language was quietly doing theology, long before we even asked it questions, as our source says, what else might be hidden in the words you use every day, just waiting for you to notice?
What other messages are bottled up in your grammar?
Don't just speak. Listen to the bones of your language.
Listen to the silence between the strokes.
Thanks for diving deep with us.
It was a pleasure.
We catch you on the next one.